Hello, my name is Ernie and I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Industrial Products Division of C.H. Hansen, which includes Hansen, Palmgren, and Superior Products. I've been in the industry for 54 years, and I've been with Palmgren here and Hansen for 10 years. Well, I think you have to go back and look at Palmgren's beginning. Palmgren was started by the Palmgren family as Chicago Tool and Engineering. And basically what they did in 1919 was they designed and built fixturing and tooling and one-off vices for the machine shops and all the steel mills around the south side of Chicago. And that was the core of their business. And what was interesting as part of that is by going into those machine shops with machines that were just being invented for the first time, they got to see what the specific requirements were of the shops. They also got to see what the issues were for machinists to make the parts that they had to make, since everything made back there was pretty much manually. And so they developed product around that. And that's how they evolved to mass producing the first machine vices in the early 1920s, which ironically we still make and sell today. So they've really stood the test of time. But the whole beginning was built around that user application, the engineering of the product to best fit that user's need, and then developing that product. And that carried through with the company for years and years and years. Eventually, they just changed the name to Palmgren and continued to add different products in the work holding and work positioning marketplace. Today, if you look at what we do today, we kind of still have that same foundation of doing everything based around what the user's needs are for our products. We have a little bit more sophisticated processes today than what they did back in the early 1900s. And we use a process today called quality functional development, which is basically the voice of the customer. And whether we're developing a new product or whether we're improving an existing product, nothing begins until after we've done the research on specifically from the end users of these types of products, what they like, what they don't like, what works, what doesn't work, and what ideas they have that could make it better. Once we gather all that information and we chart all of that information and we digest it, we look at what the competition is doing in relationship to a lot of those issues. At that point in time, then it goes into an engineering phase of how do we take that feedback and actually turn it into the product that that end user really wants. The challenge for us is doing that at the price the end user wants to pay for. And so that's our biggest challenge. So it's a lot of the same stuff they did when they started. It's a little different process today, but it's still based around the customer to give the customer what they want, what they need. And I think that attributes to the reason why we survived as long as we survived and maintained the quality of the brand. Well, the core of the Palmgren product started with standard machine vices, and it evolved then to a multitude of work positioning tables that you would mount the vices on to put in all these manual machines. As the machinery industry developed further and further and further along, and now we have computerized CNC equipment and everything, we've now got vices that work into that part of the market. We still have some of the basic stuff. Most of the positioning work tables and that type of product is kind of very minimal now because of the sophistication of the machines to move parts around. And so that's our core business. So as we look at where we wanted to go in continuing to grow and develop in the marketplace, we decided that we were going to focus in a couple of different areas. We're primarily a metalworking product manufacturer and supplier. And what we do in the metalworking category falls into two categories. One is what we call work holding or under the spindle, and it can be used on a workbench, on a machine, whatever. The other part of it is what we call shop equipment, which is metalworking machines, which we specialize in drilling, milling, turning, sawing, and finishing. And it's all stuff that's used in large shops or small shops, fabricators, maintenance, and so it has a broad market. And that's the category of what we specialize in and what we build our programs around. We take a unique approach when we're looking to develop tools, right? One of them is there's not a whole lot you can do new with a drill press vise. That is what it is. So most of the development that we've come is work holding on a bench, like bench vices and stuff, or in the machining category. So when we look at what we're going to do in the machinery category, that's basically a couple of angles. One, again, what is that end user looking for? But the other thing we look at very extensively is the perishable side of the tooling that's used on our machines. So drill bits, mill insert cutters, taps, coated abrasives, bonded abrasives, because those industries just keep evolving and improving and coming up with new products year over year over year. So we want to make sure that as we make product improvements or we develop new products, that they can handle and perform at the best level based on the tooling that the end users are buying to use on our equipment. And so there's that whole balance of what we look at with what we do as well. One of the things, as we've surveyed all the end users and we've talked to them about, particularly in a lot of different categories, whether we're looking at sawing, drilling, it's been a big factor in finishing, which is a new phenomenon over the last few years, is variable speed drives. Now, variable speed drives have been around for quite a while. And the problem is the first ones when they came out were quite expensive. And on small equipment, the drive could be as much money as the piece of equipment that you would put the drive on. So while people saw the benefits of it, they couldn't justify the cost of it in the earlier days. Variable speed drive, like the electronic industry, has improved over time, right? So what happens is new technologies come along, testing is done, costs come down, and it's become way more affordable than it was in the past. In the old days when we did variable speed, it wasn't electronic, it was with pulleys, and spring-loaded pulleys, which you had a speed range to, but they had certain limitations and a lot more maintenance. When you get to the modern day electronic variable speed drives, you have a much broader speed range that you can program into the drives to give you much more flexibility. And there's an importance to that, particularly when we look at our abrasive finishing equipment. And Palmgren was really was the point of the arrow, right, in driving in the development of an economical variable speed drive program to be used in these benchtop finishing tools. And the reason why this is important is when you take a look at coated abrasives, for example, the improvement in the performance of coated abrasives has gone from the point of where you can now rough with it, you can smooth with it, you can finish it, you can even polish with it. But in order to do all of that on a single machine, you have to have a really broad speed range because each one of those applications and those requires a different speed range. That's what drove us to work really hard to keep developing and lead in the variable speed drive on the finishing line. So today, Palmgren offers the broadest line of variable speed bench grinders and buffers. And on those two, in the old days, you would have to buy two, a low speed and a high speed. Now we've got the one. We also put it on belt grinders, belt and disc machines, and disc grinders. So we have the whole gambit, more models than anybody else, economically priced, but high performing and tools that are really market leaders today in the industry. Now we're playing with some of that even on saws and drill presses as we move away from more of the belt drive, which is cheaper, to the electronic drive on the variable speed. And it's nice to be out in front of everybody with that technology versus following everybody, because the machines we use them on are pretty much standard machines of existing technology. So this took what was existing and elevated it to a whole nother level. As with any vice or machinery line, right, we all have what I call Me Too product, right? Everybody's got it. It's standard Me Too product. So there's not a lot you can do to Me Too product other than maybe make it look a little different to differentiate yourself in the market. So what we try to focus on in the product is where can we take a particular machine or a vice or something and take it to another level and develop it in making those end users' needs met and give them an advantage in their shops to increase their productivity and whatever. And so we look at each one of our categories. So we've already done some of this development in our drill press line, and it could be a major thing as far as on a step pulley drill press, how to adjust the speeds without having to get wrenches and everything else to change it. Designs to something as simple as a chuck key holder when the operator can't find his chuck key to change the drill bit. So those are simple changes, right? On the abrasive line, we've pretty much added all these new products, which is this whole variable speed drive program, and we're looking at some other new machines that are probably a little bigger that we can do some of that stuff with. But we now have the broadest line of combination belt and disc machines that can fit, whether it's metalworking, woodworking, or whatever. We've got it all covered. And so that's been our biggest technological advantage that we've had in development. And we continue to look at that and fine tune that and say, hey, are there other things we want to do? On our saw program, are doing more variable speed on saws than we have in the past because we now have that technology that works well for us. But the other big thing we're doing now coming out of machines is, over the years, Palmgren not only sold machine vices, they used to sell bench vices. And they had on and off, but it was a very small, simple product offering, not much. And over the last couple of years, we've dramatically expanded that program. We've developed some high-end, high-quality, high-performance line of bench vices that we have patents on. We have multiple patents on that. Again, along that, how do we make an older tool a better tool and a more functional tool for end users? And then we've expanded the program. We've introduced a line of cast bench vices that we've changed the chemistry mix on the castings, where we generate almost the same amount of strength with a casting as you would with a drop forge vise, but at a fraction of the cost of a drop forge vise. The last tool that we've just come out with and we're getting ready to launch is we developed what we call a multi-positioning ball vise. And basically that's a ductile iron 60,000 PSI 4-inch vise with a 4-inch opening that actually is cast and then mounted on a ball and with a locking mechanism where you can move that vise into different planes around or circling around, whatever you need to do. And so that if you're working on a bench, rather than you contorting to work on the part, you can position the part to make it optimal for the whatever you're trying to do with it. We took that vise even one step further, and now we took the old swivel jaw where the jaw swivels 360 degrees around, so you have pipe jaws or whatever, and we mounted that 4-inch onto that same ball vise. Those are Palmgren exclusives, not available from anybody else in the industry, and they really give you a real advantage when you have work that you're doing on a workbench, from small parts to big parts, with a lot of strength. And those are some of the new things we've got coming. We have a lot of other ideas and a lot of feedback data that we've been doing, but we don't do anything until after we've gone through that whole analysis and structured it all out where it makes sense.